Hello, this is Catherine at I Know I Need to Stop Talking. Hello, lovelies. It's been 2 whole weeks. I've missed you. I've missed you all. I've missed sitting, staring at the mound of crap on my desk in the little corner of the room, listening to the sound of my own voice. But I've missed you all as well. And yeah, it's been 2 weeks. So much to tell you. So many things have happened in that time. Where to start? Well, firstly, breaking news. So obviously, long-time listeners will know my woes with Ocado. I mean, not that I have any bad word to say about Ocado, because they are tremendous and they deliver our shopping week in, week out. But honestly, I've been such a dick. So usually Ocado, we're kind of in this kind of like Mexican standoff in terms of, will I get the podcast recorded first? Will Ocado rock up? Which will it be? Well, I've been a total dick. So our little road that we live in is a little cul-de-sac, and we got a letter through the door recently to tell us that the main road was having some roadworks done to it. And to be honest, it was one of those letters that when I got it, I almost just, because it was like a dear occupier, I was almost just like, oh, this is clearly not relevant to me, I should throw it in a bin. Well, thank goodness I didn't, because it turns out they are doing some stuff. I assume it's roadworks. They probably said this in the letter and I missed the detail. They're doing some stuff to the main road, which means for the next 4 weeks, from 7 o'clock in the evening until 6 o'clock the next morning, you can't get out the end of our cul-de-sac. I know I feel like I'm in some kind of, I feel this could be a movie, right? I'm in this kind of like difficult, tragic situation, trapped in my nice middle-class house in my middle-class neighbourhood. Yeah, it doesn't really stack up, does it? So anyway, I hadn't realised when I'd booked my Ocado delivery that this roadwork stuff would have started there. But as I returned last night, more on which later, because I went out, yes I did. But before we get to that tremendously exciting occurrence and the long-term effect it's ravaged on my body, and it's not a hangover either, before we get to that, as I was walking back last night, and there were all like these flashing lights and stuff, and the road was closed, and then I don't know if it's just me, I get a bit confused as a pedestrian sometimes if you're allowed to do things. So it said road closed, and I thought probably as a pedestrian it was all right for me to walk past the road closed sign, but you know when you're still secretly a little bit scared that the road police will turn up. The road police a thing? Or is it just the normal police? Well, whoever, the road police or the normal police. I was worried that I would get arrested as I walked home last night, but phew, I didn't. Nobody had any issue with me doing that. So, back to Ocado. I woke up this morning with a start, partly because I opened my eyes this morning. I have a sleep mask at night because I like to look slightly strange when I sleep. No, it's good for keeping the light out. So I woke up this morning, and you know when you have that sensation that somebody's looking at you? And obviously I was wearing a sleep mask, so couldn't be sure. So I carefully lifted my sleep mask from my eyes to find ASAP sitting about like an inch from my face, just staring really unnervingly at me. For those who are new to the podcast, ASAP is one of my cats, just in case you thought there was like some strange man called ASAP sitting on the edge of my bed, which would have been even more unnerving. But I woke up with a start, A, because ASAP was staring at me, and B, because I suddenly went, fuck, Ocado. So I booked Ocado. Of course I had. I booked it because I was like, haha, Ocado, you will not get the better of me and turn up while I'm recording my podcast. I shall book you to come later at exactly the time the road closed. So I phoned Ocado this morning. I spoke to a lovely lady in the call centre, and I started my phone call with, I'm a total idiot. And she was very nice, didn't tell me that I was a total idiot in return, although she would be well within her rights to, and is doing her utmost to try and divert the Ocado driver so they can just get in here, just hopefully before that 7 o'clock curfew and the road closure slams down, because the alternative, and I can just see it now, this is going to be my life, isn't it? The alternative is going to be that as a fun Saturday night family activity, we're going to have to walk to the end of the road closure, which is quite a little way away, because it's not just at the end of my cul-de-sac, it goes along the main road. We're going to have to get the Ocado driver to stop at the road barrier, and we're going to have to walk, and then we're going to have to carry all the shopping back, which again, isn't hindsight a beautiful thing? As I was doing the Ocado shop, I was like, oh, brilliant, buy 1 case of Coke Zero, buy another one, add a football for free. Well, that's fantastic, that's a great economy, of course I should do this. That's going to come back to bite me, isn't it, later when I'm carrying 2 fucking things of Coke on my head and a football balanced on the side. So yeah, haven't told the children that that's going to be the magical excitement for Saturday night, but they can look forward to all that. On the plus side, I have got an extra pair of hands, so if you can hear background noise, it's because Beth is having a sleepover. It's one of those things I don't really know how it's happened. She got up this morning and I was in the bath, and she just came and stood over me and asked repeatedly for me to text the mum of her friend, which I did. And ask when her friend was able to come over, and I said to Beth, well, I'll see if she's around next weekend, and Beth said, or tonight. And something about Beth's powers, which we don't know where they've come from, or you know, kind of how she has them, but Beth's powers very occasionally are very powerful, and thus it was that about, probably, I'm going to say no more than 30 minutes after I'd made that text, Beth's friend was dropped off at her house to stay the night. So yeah, if there's background noise, it's Beth and her friend. They are delightful and very, very funny together. They've just been out the front of the house playing a very aggressive game of football for quite some time. So yeah, but if they're finished football and are now back to football chanting or whatever else they're doing, that's the background noise. But on the plus side, it does give me another additional pair of hands. Maybe I should round the neighbours up. Hey neighbours, let's go and do like a nice neighbourly conga to the Ocado van. So yeah, that's a blog post basically just waiting to happen. But there's no podcast last week because we went up to stay with my mum, who lives a couple of hours away from here, and actually it's been ages since we've been up there to stay properly. And it was so lovely, so lovely. I mean, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm definitely still at that stage in the pandemic where I am taking nothing for granted, and everything that happens, I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And it was amazing because going to my mum's house is a little bit like going to a really nice, really posh hotel. Everything is clean and tidy, and there's an endless supply of amazing food, which basically is how all hotels should be. So yeah, we went out, we stayed, we had a lovely time. I mean, I don't know if it's just me. I think we've discussed this before on podcasts. I do immediately regress to a little bit of an obstreperous teenager the moment. Oh, I love that word. Love that word, obstreperous. Obstreperous. That is a perfect description of me as a teenager, and indeed my children. Karma bites once again. But yeah, the moment I cross the threshold to my mum's house, I'm not as bad in my dad's house actually, and I think it's because that wasn't where I was a teenager growing up, was my mum's house. I crossed that threshold. It's like I'm 14 again and I'm an utter dick. I'm literally like, well, I said before, you know, you've moved the mugs. Why have you moved the mugs? How could you possibly move the mugs? She puts the radio on. Oh, why are you listening to this music? It's rubbish. Why don't you listen to this? Oh, like, honestly, I'd like look at myself and I'm like, shut up. You're in like nice, beautiful hotel with lovely food. Shut up, shut up. I also always, and it's nice to see that some of the old habits, the old skills are still there. At night, when I lived at home with my mum and dad, every night I would take with me a glass of orange squash up to my bedroom, and every night, without fail, as I walked up the stairs, some of the squash would spill over the edge, and my mum would come after, because my mum's house is beautiful, with a cloth and go, Catherine, stop spilling your squash over there. And really pleasingly, at the age of 39, that still happens, to the point, I think next time I'm just going to give my glass to Mr. I know I need to stop talking, because obviously you don't get told off if you're the son-in-law, whereas I do absolutely, and probably justifiably, get told off, which my kids absolutely love. There was an occasion years ago, kids were much smaller, when we went up to my mum's house, and I can't remember what happened. I think something got dropped or broken or something like that, and Jamie was quite worried. Not that the thing had got broken, but he was quite worried that my mum was going to tell me off. Beth, in her fucking element, like literally, she was like rubbing our little hands together with glee. Are you going to get into trouble with Granny? And then she's marching into my mum. Granny, come and see what Mummy's done. You might want to tell her off. Good, excellent, thanks for that, Beth. We had some great and very entertaining moments, because of course the Saturday night was when we played Ukraine in the football. We'll come on to the football. I mean, it's, oh my goodness me, as a football fan, it has been the most rollercoaster couple of weeks. But we were watching in the evening the game with my mum, and Beth and my mum, it's like a meeting of very determined minds. So obviously, as again long-time listeners know, Beth plays a lot of football. My mum does not play football, but, you know, watches key games and things like that. But for some unknown reason, Beth and my mum decided to get into a debate with one another over the correct interpretation of the offside rule. I mean, I was absolutely weeping, laughing, because Beth's just utter disbelief. I mean, to be fair, my mum was not too far wrong. I think some of her terminology was slightly off. But honestly, if you seen Beth kind of like, no, Granny, that's not how the offside rule works, it was very funny. And again, also shadows of me as an obstreperous teenager. But football, oh my goodness me. And I'm sorry if you're not a football fan, but I actually think at this point in major tournaments, pretty much all of the population, dare I say it, even like my work colleagues who've got no interest, even they are going, well, I'll probably put the game on Sunday night, because, we are in the final. We're in the fucking final. And I wrote a blog post this morning, and actually going back to my mum's house was ironic, because it was summer of 96, Euro 96, was the first time I'd really got interested in a major tournament. I was 14 years old. And me and my mates just, kind of, we had all like, we had the wall charts, we had the fixture lists, we poured over, like I used to buy Match and Shoot magazine and other random football named magazines every week. And England were going to win. And everybody knew that England was going to win because we'd been told, it was written in the stars. It was written in the fucking stars. It was 30 years since we'd won the World Cup. We were playing on home soil. We had a great team. We had a great manager. We were going to win. And we started the tournament and it felt like we were going to win, right? We beat Scotland. We smashed our way through Holland. One of the best games I've ever watched is watching us beat the Netherlands. It was amazing. And then we even managed to beat Spain in a penalty shootout, and we're in the semi-finals. And me and my friends said, we're going, this is it. I think it was a Thursday night, wasn't it? The semi-final. Thursday night, we're going to win. And we all know what happened next, because Germany beat us in a penalty shootout, which I watched on the same square footage of the living room in my mum's house. So it was a definite demon exercising moment to sit there on Saturday night and watch us so brilliantly win 4-0 instead. But yeah, we crashed out, and hand on heart, I've watched a lot of football games, and I don't think there is another game that has left me so devastated. And I think that's in several parts, right? We genuinely thought and hoped and believed that we were going to win, and the media had hyped us up to think so, and we'd hyped ourselves up to think so, right? But I also think just the devastation of the team, and particularly the devastation of then a very young Gareth Southgate going up to take his penalty kick from the spot and having it saved, and us then crashing out. And I will never forget the look on his face. Those of you who've been on the blog today will have seen, I even documented it in my diary, and like the only newspaper cutting of any kind of ever stuck in my diary, despite having written it from the age of 11 until, I don't know, present day. Never ever cut out another newspaper clipping, but I did, of Gareth Southgate, so I shared a photo of that today. And in life, we don't often get, I don't think, to avenge kind of demons that we face. And I can't imagine what, sort of the journey after that for Gareth Southgate must have felt like, because while it's a whole team that wins or loses any game of football, he was undoubtedly the figurehead for, perhaps that loss in terms of how he was portrayed and how people responded. So to see him come back as England manager in itself, even if they've not won a single game under him, you're like, yes, this is some kind of the fates coming together. To see England do well under Gareth Southgate, you're like, oh my goodness, yes, this is amazing. But to see him get them to a major final, literally tears in my eyes talking about it now, because I just think, oh my goodness, I can't imagine what that must mean for him, and indeed what it does mean, not just for him, but actually for all of us who sat there on that summer's night so long ago, our heads in our hands and utter despair and devastation. To go from that to where we are now, I mean, we obviously, we all watched the game together as a family on Wednesday night. Kids stayed up late. Obviously, it went to extra time. Of course, we couldn't just win it in normal time. No, we had to go there and we're sitting there thinking, please not penalties, please not penalties. And I just didn't believe it. I just didn't believe we could get through. We got very lucky with the penalty, and obviously then Kane going and getting the rebound and getting it into the back of the net. But it wasn't until we were about 30 seconds from time that I allowed myself to think, oh my God, we might actually be going to do this. And when that final whistle went, I was in absolute floods of tears. And part of that was absolutely delight, 100% to get into sort of a major final. Men's major final is amazing. But part of that was also that you just think, God, it couldn't happen to a more perfect person. It is the fairy tale. And I posted today kind of, sort of saying about, how will we do tomorrow night? Well, despite Jamie's wild predictions, in Jamie's view, and you heard it here first, we're going to win tomorrow night 7-0, and 3 of those goals are going to be scored by Jordan Pickford. I don't know if anybody's a betting person out there and wants to go and get me odds on that. I'm thinking they might be quite long. So Jamie's clearly lost his mind. But yeah, I don't know whether we'll win or we won't win tomorrow night. I suspect we probably won't. I think the Italians look in great form. But, and I say this as a die-hard England supporter, it almost doesn't matter. Just to put those demons to bed means the absolute world. So yeah, it's been an absolute phenomenal week from a football perspective, not least because we also found out, so now Beth's at the age that she is, again, lots of you know, Beth is an avid footballer. She plays for a boys team and she also plays for a girls team, and it's been a long extended trial process, and against some very stiff competition she's successfully retrialled for both of her teams, so I am thrilled for her, absolutely thrilled. And it's been a tumultuous few weeks, let's just say that. Meanwhile, Jamie continues to excel in just being an all-round brilliant human being. Generally, I just love him. So the other morning, he got up. We had his friends were getting dropped off very early with us because we were going to take them into school when we took the kids in. And so I said to him, Jamie, you're usually up a bit before me in the morning. Are you all right to get up and let them in when they arrive? Because they were coming, I think, about 7 o'clock in the morning. He said, yeah, fine, no problem. So I heard him get up, diligently set his alarm clock, got up and got dressed, and I kind of heard him sort of doing bits and pieces. I didn't think too much of it. Anyway, we got his friends, we picked them up, we took them to school and stuff, and then when I picked him up later, I said, oh, thanks, Jamie, you're a real star this morning. He went, oh, yeah, it's quite a morning. And I said, oh, is something wrong? Were your friends okay? Like, did anything kick off? I thought they seemed fine. He said, no, not my friends. He said it was ASAP. Of course it was ASAP. Of course it was ASAP. So I've told you all before the stories of how for a long time Sandwich was the only cat and Sandwich was a good girl, and every night we put her to sleep in our conservatory. She had a cat flap that she could go outside to the garden to have a wee if she needed to. She'd go outside, have a wee, come back inside, sleep in her cat bed like a very good girl. Then we brought the two fucking dickheads home, ASAP and Brexit. And ASAP is the ultimate fucking liability. She makes Floppy the dog look like a very good boy. That's how much of a fucking liability she is. So she quickly learned that not only could she go out the cat flap at night and have a wee, she could then scale the side of the house and rock up in through our bedroom windows. And she started with the obvious ones, like the ones above the conservatory roof. So we closed those. Eventually we closed them all apart from our bedroom window, which is on a side of the house where there's literally, it's a sheer scale. There's no roof underneath or any easy way to get up. And she rocked up through that. And at that point I just gave up, which you should never do. You should never let your animals rule your life. But ASAP is ruling my life. So not content just with jumping through bedroom windows, on Monday morning, poor Jamie had woken up, sort of sitting in bed, waking up, realised ASAP was in his bedroom, obviously having jumped in through one of the windows, realised ASAP wasn't alone. ASAP, the absolute dickhead, had brought a live mouse in her jaws up the side of the house, in through the bedroom window, and ran into Jamie's room because he's her favourite, and she was delighted to show him this amazing gift that she brought him. So Jamie, poor bloke, literally spent the first half an hour of his day trying to catch a mouse around his bedroom while ASAP looked on and pried and was like, there you go, it's exactly the Monday morning entertainment I know you were looking at for. So yeah, he's a hero, absolute hero. He also had sports today, which devastatingly I was not allowed to go and watch. I love being an embarrassing parent. I kind of feel like this is what I was born to do in life, be an embarrassing parent. At sports day, Jamie's final sports day when he was at primary school, when we did go and watch, he was running in I was going to call it the round the track race. That shows my complete lack of sporting knowledge. The round the track race, is it 400 metres? Maybe? It's the long race, the long round the track race. Anyway, that's what Jamie was doing. He was running the long race. And he'd really convinced himself that he couldn't do it. He had an amazing, amazing teacher at the time who basically kind of said, Jamie, shut up, of course you can do it, and I'm going to put you in for it, and you're going to do really well. And thanks to all that encouragement, I think he even surprised himself, and he did amazingly. He finished second after the fastest kid in the school, and he's not, he's very athletic, he's very good at running and things like that, but he doesn't like to put himself in a position, potentially where he'll be the centre of attention, basically. He gets easily embarrassed. So to do that, and the pride on his face was amazing. However, what he was less proud of was the fact that because it's the round the track race, official terminology, I feel like I might write to the Olympic Committee, suggests that they rename the round the track race as the round the track race. I should definitely send that suggestion in. But what he enjoyed less was because it was round the track and there were lots of parents there. I'm very short, so's my friend V. We were like, what should we do? We're not going to be able to see him running. So one of us, I want to say V, but it was probably me because V is my proper sensible grown-up. She's not sensible at all, but she's more sensible than me, so it's like a sliding scale. One of us said, let's get these two chairs and stand on them, which is very against health and safety regulations and very dangerous, and you should definitely never do this, but we absolutely did. Let's stand on them in the middle of the field, and then we can see Jamie and scream at him as he goes round. So I've got a glorious video somewhere of Jamie running brilliantly and me and V standing on chairs in the middle of the school field going, Jamie! It was amazing, and he was completely mortified, so it was a total win on all levels. But yes, he had his school sports day, secondary school, first sports day, of course, because COVID last year. And he was put in the 100 metres and he got third place. And I was super, super proud of him. And like, he's kind of like embarrassed. He's like, Mum, shut up. But I think he was secretly a little bit proud too. And probably even more proud of the fact that I wasn't standing in the middle of the field screaming at him, which I wouldn't have needed to do because it wasn't around the track race. You save your screaming on a chair in the middle of a field moment for around the track race. So yeah, so that was Jamie. As I alluded to earlier, I went out last night. I know. I haven't done a lot of going out at any point since the pandemic started, primarily because I don't know about anybody else. It's very hard work leaving the house, isn't it? I've got used to it. I've been one of those very lucky people who's been able to work from home for the pandemic, so I fully appreciate how lucky I am. But consequently, like, if I don't know, speak with an additional person in the day that I wasn't expecting to, I'm like, oh my goodness me, well, that's exhausted me, time for a lie down. But no, went out last night, and it was absolutely lovely. I went out with some work colleagues and to meet some new members of the team, and it was really, really lovely. But my feet are fucked because so rewind back to pre-pandemic. I'm 5'1" 3/4. I don't mind being short, but I resent the implication that by being short I am in any way less present than anybody else. So I therefore wear heels pretty much 24/7. I went into hospital in labour both times to have my children wearing heels and a full face of makeup because I'm mad or stupid, delete as applicable. But with the pandemic, even I went, well, there's no point wearing heels to walk from the bedroom downstairs to my desk, is there? No, there's no point. So I went from wearing heels every single day to not wearing them. I'm just trying to think, did I wear any heels at all last year? I don't think I did. So they've all sat there, boxed them up nice and neatly. I've lived in like flip-flops and trainers. I can't deny it. It's been very, very comfortable. But I don't like having to crane my neck backwards to look at people. So I've been into the office a couple of times recently as we start to work out whatever the hell this new normal is. And dear God, it's a struggle. I mean, I don't know if there's anybody out there providing training courses for like rehabilitation return to the office for those of us who've been used to living in elasticated waistbands and slippers for the last year, or even not getting dressed from the waist down. For any of my work colleagues listening, rest assured, I do get dressed from the waist down. But if Jamie was in my office, rest assured that he almost certainly wouldn't. So if there's anybody out there offering those, because I don't have a great track record with heels generally. I am quite uncoordinated, as proved to me when I got into the office earlier this week and went to sit on a high office chair that was next to a standing desk. Literally went to sit on it, my heels slipped off, and within like seconds of arriving in there, I was like flat on my face on the floor, and I was like, oh, it's really reassuring in some ways. There's been a whole pandemic, and yet something's never changed. I'm still uncoordinated as fuck. So that was a nice achievement. But then so we went out last night, and I was like, well, obviously I'll need some heels. But I thought, heels will be a shock to my delicate little system after all this time in slippers. So I'll take some flats as well. Yes, I had some flats. Took a bag, put the heels in there, put the flats in there. Well, it all started to go to shit when I left the house to realise that the train from the station that's very nearby was delayed and was not going to get me to the station that's rather further away by the time I had to make my change of train in order to get to where I was meeting everybody. Confused? Me too. So I therefore, it all started badly, so I had to therefore do a very fast jog sprint to the second station in order to get there in time. So I arrived there already I don't really know why I ever bother doing things like hair on my makeup, because I arrived there with like sweat pouring down my face and kind of hair all over the place. Got there, made the train, so fantastic. Then arrived at my destination, put on my heels, thinking this is great. Well, long story short, by the time I'd managed to get from the station to where we were meeting, and then to the second place we went on to, and then back to the station, and then back home, my feet are battered. Absolutely battered. I've got about 8 different blisters in all different places, even places where I don't think the shoe could even conceivably have touched my foot, or like oozing. That's a delightful image. In fact, oozing generally is not a word that you want to hear in relation to your body. Yeah, my feet are absolutely battered, and like a night out, I mean, I probably need to sleep for a week now. It's a bit much, isn't it? It's a bit much. It did, looking at my delightful feet, it reminds me of one of the the most romantic moments from mine and Mr. I Know I Need to Stop Talking's relationship, which every now and then I threaten to tell this story and he's like, stop it, I'm sure I put in our marriage vows you weren't allowed to tell this story. So early on we went and stayed in a tent, and you can tell this is early on in our relationship because the only way I would let anybody force me into a tent would be if I was madly, desperately, deeply in love with them and was hoping being in a tent with them might lead to something more. So you can tell it was early on. So blind with love, I'd put aside my personal discomfort and hell of sleeping in a tent. I was like to Mr. I Know You Need to Stop Talking, yes, darling, let's get into the tent. So we put this tent up, got into the tent, I took off my shoes, and as I took off my shoe, what looked like had happened was like one of my big toes fell off, and Mr. I Know You Need to Stop Talking was like, what the fuck is that? Like thinking, oh my God, who is this girl that I've brought into my tent? Why, is this leprosy? Why are parts of her anatomy falling off? It wasn't actually my big toe. It was some massive blister that had formed over the end of my big toe because, no doubt, of wildly unsuitable shoes, which had chosen that very moment to shed away from my big toe, much like a snake, I imagine, sheds its skin. It was grotesque, and every time we, reminisce over our relationship, I'm like, remember the time my toe? And Mr. I Know You Need to Stop Talking. He's like, no, stop it, shut up, what's wrong with you? Why is stuff falling off? So yeah, it was a lovely night out, but based on the state of my feet, I think I can probably next arrange to go out in maybe the year 2024. I think my feet might be ready for public company again. But a joy to go out, a joy to be out and about, a joy to do something so incredibly normal, and a joy to wear my really unbelievably subtle brand new, because I love a face mask. I know people are divided on them. I love a face mask. I particularly love a sparkly one. So my latest acquisition, hot pink sparkly sequined face mask, which I can give you an indication of its impact because it's on the floor next to the washing machine at the minute waiting to be washed, and Jamie just walked in, took one look at it, went, bloody hell mum, and walked back out. So I feel I have achieved. It's a funny old time, isn't it? It's this strange period of time where some people are ready to get back to normal. The government is telling us we should get back to normal. Case rates are very high. Lots of us still have vulnerable people around us. Some of us are vaccinated, some of us are not vaccinated, some of us are bits of vaccinated, and everybody's feeling really different. So as always, kindness to others, but always kindness to you too. Don't put too many expectations on yourself right now. I think as hard as it was going into the pandemic, it's going to be equally just as hard as we come out, whatever the other side looks like, and find that new normal. It's a terrible phrase, isn't it? But it is kind of correct. It's a while, I think, before we get back to normal. And certainly England being in the final of a men's major football tournament is not normal at all. It's fucking bonkers, isn't it? It's fucking bonkers. I mean, do we dare to dream? Do we dare to hope? I don't know. I mean, I feel like I aged about 37 years just sitting watching that game on Wednesday night. I mean, it was absolutely horrendous. I was drinking orange squash because I knew that I would be nerve drinking all evening. So I had this big glass of orange squash next to me the whole evening, which I was frantically downing in a slightly histrionic way. And when I was sobbing hysterically at the end and phoning my dad and going, Daddy, we did it, we're in the final, and cheering and sobbing, Jamie's like, Mum, do you need some more orange squash, or do you need to go to bed? Because look at the state of you. And it was fair. It was fair and valid. So I don't know. I think probably Italy will have it. I think they look very good. But you know what? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the result is, because all those years, for those of you who like me are old enough to remember it, all those years genuinely of hurt, those years of pain, Southgate and the team have done such an amazing job. And I know everybody bangs on constantly about football coming home. And yes, it'd be amazing to win tomorrow night. But as I said earlier in my blog post, I don't think it matters, because actually, given everything we've seen and everything they've achieved at the football, I think football's already come home. And I think we should be bloody proud of that. Have lovely weeks. Look after yourselves. I will see you all next week. Take care. Lots of love. Bye-bye.